Thriller Thursday. Thank you for joining in. My name is Nando, one of the members of Portal to the Paranormal. So this evening, really exciting, I'm going to be speaking to Miranda Young, the Ghost Biker Explorations. So what I'm going to do is just bring her on. Hi, Amanda. Miranda, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Nando?
I'm really well, thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for joining us this evening for our Thriller Thursday. I'm really excited about having you on. What I want to do is just get into it really with you, find out as much as we can in the hour that we have, and throw a load of questions at you. I've got quite a few, if you don't mind.
Sounds great.
So we know you're in America, so some of our viewers may not know who you are and what you do. Can you just give us a bit of an overview about what you do and just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Miranda Young, but I'm better known as the Ghost Biker, and I travel around the United States on my motorcycle to different haunted and historic locations, telling the history and doing investigations there to see if we can get some paranormal activity.
Brilliant. And some of the stuff that you've done, absolutely amazing. I will touch base on a few of them. There's one particular one that I want to, chat to you about. But firstly, and one of the most common questions you most probably get is, how did you get into this? What got your spark in the paranormal?
So I've always been interested in the paranormal ever since I was young. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who was a great storyteller. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of East Tennessee, and so she shared a lot of stories about mountain haunts and that sort of thing. And so I always had interest, always spent a lot of time in the libraries learning different folklore and local legends. Those are really my favorite, the small, kind of lesser known, non-commercial type hauntings. And then a little over 10 years ago, I was approached by a team leader who saw that I had a background in photography. And so he wanted me to look at some different images and try to essentially debunk and come up with answers to some of the photography that they had taken during some of their investigations. And so I started with 1-2 photographs and turned into, 10, 20 images. And so he invited me to join the team on an investigation of a local restaurant and bar that was in a marina. And so there was a lot of different stories of different types of activity that the owners of this location had. And so it was a great night. I experienced my first EVPs. I was actually touched, had a lot of flashlight activity, a lot of different activity on, the K2 meters and other different, tools that we were using. And really after that, I was hooked. I had such good experiences that they invited me to be a member of the team. And I was a member of the team for about 8 years. And during that time, I found that with work and with, other, just kind of being out on my own, that I would be out riding my motorcycle to these different historic and unique locations. And I started really documenting it on my social media sites. And a lot of these locations were places that were either abandoned or had some kind of unique history that maybe people would not really think about going to. But then when they saw the pictures, they were like, hey, what's the story behind this? Is it haunted? Is it, what is the historical significance? And so I started sharing that, and I thought, why don't I document all of this through video? So that's really how Ghost Biker Explorations was born. I left the team. And because with the team, I did their photo analysis as well as their marketing and putting out their videos and that sort of thing, as well as an investigator. And I just didn't have the time to devote to both. So I stepped out of that role and thought, gonna try Ghost Biker Explorations. And now 4 years later, we're rolling into season 4 and planning a trip to the UK. And so it's going really well.
And watching your videos, you can see how well it's doing, and some of the stuff that you pick up, absolutely amazing. And again, we will touch base on that. But for you, working as part of a team and working on your own, I take it you've learned how to do things in certain ways. you know, like us over here, we do like a seance, we do different types of experiments. What's your, like, how do you get started before you go into a location? You know, do you do like a seance before, like protective circles, or what kind of things do you do to prepare yourself for the evenings?
So, you know, so as far as the different locations that I like to hit, you know, a lot of them, like I said, some are commercial and some are, you know, the lesser known. I spend a lot of time researching beforehand. You know, I don't really necessarily want to know, like if it's been investigated before, I don't really want to know the hot spots, if you will. But as far as researching the history, so I spend about as double amount time on the history side as I do on the investigation side. And then before I go, I always do a prayer of protection. And if I'm being honest, you know, I'm usually kind of praying throughout and then also as I leave as well. I'm a very spiritual person. And so that's something that I always do beforehand. And then just spending that time on the motorcycle on the way to that location, you get a lot of time to really, you know, kind of sort things out and work through what I'm about to do. So I definitely always spend the time researching as well as the prayer of protection.
Brilliant. And with your investigations, we see you use a lot of technical equipment. Is that how you rely on gathering evidence, or do you prefer using technical stuff, or do you do anything else as well?
I do. So since I'm on the motorcycle, I have to really plan out that investigation. So I really, and that's where the research and everything will come in. I like to take trigger items that are specific to that location. And then I also, you know, since I do have the limited space, I try to pick the items that, or the tools that I think will, you know, be intricate to that location. And so I prefer, you know, my recorders and the audio and video recorders. I'm kind of a old school investigator, I guess. I usually rely on that, and especially documenting. I do have several different technical tools that I always have. And sometimes if I'm traveling with a videographer, if I have a lot of tools and it's a very large location, sometimes they will help me, you know, lug some of that equipment. But essentially, I always like my EDI Plus box because it can give me that temperature and the EMF reading. I always have that. And then, like I said, my video and audio recorders. And I kind of carry this little drop bag with me. And in that, I like to use the dowsing rods. I don't know if that's something over there you all use a lot.
Yeah, we've used the dowsing rods, yeah.
Okay. I really like those because they kind of take that technical aspect out of it. Over here, we use them to witch water or find water. And so a lot of the spirits, they're familiar with the tool. And so, and it's also, you're not asking them to touch, you know, a light or touch a gadget that maybe they don't understand. And so, so I love to use those. And then I'll also have, you know, a K2 EMF detector, REM pod. Those I'll only, an SLS camera. I usually only break those out whenever it comes time for the actual, you know, a specific part of the investigation. But I'll even take, you know, like a whiteboard, and instead of asking some questions, I'm always interested to see if the spirits can actually see me. And so sometimes I'll write the questions on the whiteboard to see if I can get a response. So instead of asking them to knock, I might write knock on the board or something just to see, or write a number and see if I can get a response either through a disembodied voice, an EVP, or sometimes even through the spirit box.
Brilliant. And is there a favorite piece of equipment that you'd like to use? Like, what would you say is your number one piece of equipment?
Well, I'm really big at, and I guess it kind of makes for boring investigating, but I'm really big with just sitting and asking questions. So my number one favorite is my recorder, because I really get a lot of good EVPs and disembodied voices. So probably my recorder, and then second would be that EDI box, because you can really get all the scientific readings. And if you're capturing a voice, then, and like I like to use multiple tools at once so that they can validate each other. So if I capture a voice, I like to see if there's a change in the temperature or the pressure, or if there's something with the geophone that picks up. So I really like that EDI Plus box is probably my go-to after my recorder.
Brilliant. One question that we have had pop up from Sarah is your thoughts on the Ouija board. Do you use it, or what are your thoughts? Because we know some companies, some investigation people that do it use the Ouija board to try and connect with people with spirits. What are your thoughts on that?
I personally don't use the Ouija board, just because, there's a lot of mixed feelings about it here in the US. And as far as myself, I've never used one, and I feel like it really takes that human element out. I know that for us over here, it's kind of one of those, it's kind of intention based, and I prefer to really just kind of go in and ask questions rather than using the spirit board.
No, that's perfect. And then another question's just popped up as well. The Gansfield experiment. Have you ever tried that at all? What are your thoughts with that?
I have, and I actually really like that. Between that one and the Estes method, I love it, because being able to put yourself into that sensory deprived state, I feel like you really get totally different answers than what you get any other time. I know, just having your eyes and your ears and everything blocked, I mean, you can really hear some, and even sense and feel some things that you wouldn't typically do. So I'm actually a really big fan of those two experiments.
Brilliant. I know my colleague Rosie is really happy with that. She was the one that asked the question, because she likes doing the Gansfield experiment as well. So it's good to see what your thoughts are there.
Absolutely.
Now, some of the places that you've been to, absolutely amazing. And guys, if you haven't had a chance to look at Miranda's YouTube channel, it's the Ghost Biker Explorations. Check her out on Facebook and YouTube. Some brilliant episodes that you've had. Some of them that I've watched is The Bleeding Mausoleum, Grand Old Lady, Willow's Weep. But the one, I've got to be honest with you, the one that had me sitting on the edge of my seat was Sunset Hill House. And that's the one I wanted to touch on with you, because all of them were quite gripping. You got some really good stuff, but watching Sunset Hill House, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I don't even think you were prepared for what was going to happen, and the way it sort of mapped out towards from the first episode to the third one. And like I said, it had me on the edge of my seat. If you can just give our viewers a little bit of a background of the house, because I'm sure they haven't had a chance to watch it like me, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So the Sunset Hill House was actually an amazing location, and it started out, and it actually changed sort of the way that the season ended up going, because the way I typically structure my seasons are, I like to go and visit those local legends. And so I was actually at this house investigating one of the local legends in Charleston, Tennessee, which is that of a monk who, long story short, he was involved in a train wreck, and the doctor, and this took place back in, I believe, around 1868. And so the doctor who was taking care of the victims of this train wreck actually supposedly took the monk's body and put him in a tub and removed the flesh from the bones and used the bones in his medical practice. And so I was able to investigate the train wreck site, and through a connection, a friend of a friend, I found the location of the alleged tub that the doctor had used. The homeowners had purchased it from an estate sale. And so they had it stored in this home that hadn't been lived in for 10 to 12 years. So they let me come into the location, and we were actually filming the investigation part of that tub. And inside this house, I mean, essentially, the homeowner, she lived in there in the 70s. She was the second homeowner. So she lived there during the 70s, raised her children in there. She had lost a husband who died of a heart attack. And after they moved out, they ended up renting the home out to several different people. One of the ladies, she actually fell ill to a rare lung disorder, and she ended up dying in the house as well. And then when they rented it out the final time, it was kind of a drug hoarding type situation. And so the homeowner, she is an elderly lady. So after they removed the hoarder, she ended up essentially not going in the home. She lived in another location, and really the only people that were there was the ones that came to mow the yard. So so they let me go in with my camera guy, and while we were filming the monk episode, we kept getting all these crazy sounds coming up from the second floor. And this house is a split level home to where, it was essentially 3 levels, because you had the main level you go on, some stairs that went up to the second level, and then some stairs that went down to the basement. And so while we were down there, we kept hearing this sound that sounded like a banging sound and almost like a body being drug or something being dragged across the floor. It was the weirdest thing, because we would be filming B-roll, or we would be filming kind of the intro. We didn't get as many sounds during the actual investigation, but while we were doing the B-roll and everything, we would have to stop. So I wasn't really prepared to do a full-scale home investigation. I think I had, just stuff kind of to do this haunted relic. And so I took a REM pod, I took a recorder, and I think a small little video camera, and I set it up on that second floor where we were hearing the banging. And once I set that REM pod up, every time we quit paying attention to what was going on, we would hear that REM pod go off.
Yeah.
So I contacted the homeowner and found out that they had, in fact, had activity whenever she lived there. And so she filled me in on some things that I was totally surprised about. And I asked, okay, well, would you mind if we actually investigated this entire home? And so did a small scale investigation. I think, like I said, I basically had a REM pod, a K2. I do like my flashlights, but I like to kind of use those in conjunction with other tools. So I set up flashlights around the house and multiple recorders, and really just started kind of asking questions and interacting. And the activity just in that short period of time was off the charts. So I reached out to a friend of mine, Tiffany White. She's often worked with me on some of the darker cases that I've done, and invited her to come. And essentially, this house became a full 1-year case study. She came. We had a lot of really cool activity and interesting things happen while Tiffany was there. We even had the door slam on us. We started having a lot of physical activity at that point. And so over the case of this year, this home ended up monopolizing the first season, and it was highlighted in episodes 3, 4, and I ended up doing a live season finale of season 1, which is kind of risky because you really never know what's going to happen with a live investigation. And I tell you what, it was active the entire time. It ended up, I think, being a 2.5-hour live. And so it was a 2-part investigation. And so after, the cameras quit and the lights went off and everything, I was still going back to this location. Now, I was also filming for season 2, and I was filming, Brushy Mountain and Willow's Weep, those episodes. But I ended up reaching out to, I had a lot of folks reaching out to me, actually asking, what happened with the home? Did you get resolution? What's going on with that? And so what I ended up doing was having a call to action where I reached out to the people who watched the show. And I was like, okay, if you'll send in some questions to me, I'll ask your questions at this location and we'll do another live. And so it was supposed to be about a 15-minute 15-minute camera set up. And what I was going to do was I had put all of these different tools. I had 5 different cameras on all levels. I had flashlights, EDI box, every tool that I had that the spirits could interact with. And I took these recorders and I actually pre-recorded the questions, because I know how the spirits react when I'm there, but I didn't know how the spirits would react to questions when I wasn't there. So I asked these pre-recorded questions. And then I also did something a little different and reached out to the homeowner, since one of the spirits that we had found in that house did appear to be connected with her. And we believe it was either the spirit of her deceased husband, or it was a spirit mimicking her deceased husband. So we had her ask questions. And so this live, it was extremely active. The whole time people were having things happen in their home while they were asking questions. It's probably my most viewed and most active live investigation I ever did. And it also went, I believe it was about an hour and 15 minutes. And after the cameras went off, I was plugging in the cameras, and or after the live ended, I was plugging in the cameras, starting the recorders. As soon as I started the homeowner's voice and she called out to her deceased husband's name, literally the floor beneath me started shaking. And I've never experienced anything like that. And so, of course, my videographer still had his camera going. And as that floor starts shaking, on every level, every tool that we had in that house starts going off. The geofoam is shaking on the EDI box. Flashlights are flashing. The REM pod is going off. I'm actually getting chills, just talking about it. But to me, I typically don't get scared or intimidated on these investigations. But that one instance, like I said, was unlike anything I've ever experienced. And we knew at that moment we had to go. And I just remember stepping outside of the house and standing there with my videographer, joining hands and doing the prayer of protection so that nothing would follow us. And I remember looking up, and of course, there was no curtains on any of the windows, so you could actually see the basement, the second floor, and the house level. And it was like a party going on inside. Everything was just flashing. And so when I went back the next day, I was so freaked out to go in and pick up my tools. I did this on a couple different occasions, and one specific one, I decided right after that live that I wasn't even going, typically I go in, I introduce myself again. I approach everything with respect. Yeah. So I'm always having a conversation. But when I went in this particular time, I decided I'm not going to acknowledge. And you almost got this feeling, it felt tricked, because playing the homeowner's voice, playing the recorded questions, and it started doing everything it could to get my attention. I didn't even speak. My videographer didn't speak. I was having things pull my hair, and you could see kind of the hair, moving, different elements you could see. And then at that point, we had the door open and the door closed, which was pretty creepy. And so, this went on, like I said, this was a year-long case, and the homeowner actually decided that she was going to renovate this location and start renting it out again. Because she had some family that was needing a place to live. And so over the course of this investigation period, they started doing some little remodeling to it, and, painting, ripping up the floors, moving things in. I mean, because the whole time there was no power in this location until the very, very end. And we could see the activity change. And when I reviewed the footage from that night where I had left things in there, we got what sounded like chanting coming from the bottom level. We got something, it sounded like something run up the stairs and walk through. Didn't catch anything on the camera, but we did have the REM pod go off then, as well as a flashlight. images on the laser grid. I mean, it was a very, very active night. And, it got to the point to where when I was inside there, these spirits became very familiar with me, which, as far as investigators, I know a lot of folks have gone and had different experiences where entities have said their name, or they've caught that. This one, I mean, and I don't, my name's Miranda, so it doesn't happen very often. I've only had it happen at one other location, and that was Hell's Bar Dam. But in this location, I would get my name very often, and it started saying things like, Miranda, you're going to die, or different threatening type responses to when I would just come in and introduce myself. Thankfully, I wasn't hearing that in the moment. It was straight EVPs rather than disembodied voices. And so I'm honestly glad that that they were able to close this case out. When she decided that she was going to rent it out, she asked if I could do a cleansing and get rid of what's in there. And of course, for me, that's not something I do. I don't really feel that's my place. I'm more the investigator that comes in and tries to either debunk or see if what you're experiencing is potential activity. So I had just happened to do an event in Alabama with a demonologist who has spent a lot of time. He, was trained by some wonderful other demonologists. And so I reached out to him and said, look, I said, here's this case that I have. And I said, let me give you all the evidence that I have and let me tell you about it. And so I gave him all of my stuff. I told him I believe there were 5 entities in there. I believe that 2 of them were more, I wouldn't say demonic. I mean, like I said, that's not really my call. And it's not really something that I find very often, but they did lean more on the negative side. They were darker entities, 2 of them. One very dark, one kind of darker, and then the other 3, I believe one was connected with the tub, but those 3 entities, I feel like were actually being oppressed by the 2 darker entities, and so that's what I believed. And so he went in and he reviewed my case, and he actually brought a friend. And so they actually flew up, came to the location, and we were lucky enough to be able to film it, because a lot of the time demonologists won't allow that. And when he does his cases, he doesn't do investigations or anything like that. He's only called in when it's a dark type entity, or when he's dealing, he's a demonologist. So he, the way he deals with it is he goes in and does his part. So I asked if we could take some of my equipment and have that set up during the process. And so he hadn't ever done that before. And some of the responses that we actually got during the home exorcism, or home liberation, as he likes to call it, was incredible, because when he would be, calling out, in the name of the Holy Spirit and that sort of thing, we were getting some very negative and derogatory responses in return. Yeah.
Some amazing responses. I think one of them was, you're going to have to do better than that.
Yes.
It was like they were challenging what you guys were doing, like really trying to, for a way, like show their dominance towards you guys. During the time doing the cleansing of the property, did you feel vulnerable? Did you feel different to when you've been at other locations? Because like I said, this was very intense to watch. Yes. Especially when you got the demonologist in and he's going through trying to cleanse the house, and some of the stuff that were coming through the recordings were quite, I would say, aggressive. And
they were.
That would put you on edge, and to think, well, this is totally different to what we've ever experienced. Did you feel vulnerable? Did you feel different doing this?
I really did, because I have never, I am not Catholic, so I have never experienced a exorcism or a home liberation. And so, Hollywood, they really kind of, spice it up and, make it seem like, okay, is somebody going to, start levitating or whatever, And so the demonologist had told myself. So it was myself, my camera guy, and I invited my friend Tiffany because she had been along on the case, and then also the demonologist Leon Wilkes and his assistant Paula. And so it was interesting because we're like, okay, what do we need to do to prepare for this? Because we had about a month preparation time, and he was telling us, that to get prayed up. We could fast if we wanted to. And what was really interesting was both myself and my camera guy, Josh, got a phone call from the National Center of Prayer at our offices the day before the exorcism was supposed to happen. And it was a recording, and it said, press this number. It's like, we're from the National Center of Prayer. We feel you are in need of urgent prayer. Press 0 if you want to speak with someone to pray with you. Now, nobody knows my direct office line to call me, especially the demonologist. And then it was the same situation with Josh. We got it on the same day, about a couple hours apart, which was kind of crazy. And so that just really kind of hyped up that, okay, have I prayed up as much as I need to? Because he was telling us, he was like, I have seen so many strange and bizarre things. I've seen physical things happen, and then I've also seen mental things happen. And it was a 10-hour liberation. We made sure, he always likes to start early because you just never know how long it's going to be. And so we had started early that morning, and they told us that we would need to pay attention for a sign of departure. And so he would not stop until all 5 signs of departure happened. And we had everything from, it seemed pretty normal. And, for me, when I go to a location, I like to be calm. I like to go in with a level head and not really have any heightened emotion. So I felt like I was going in with this very heightened emotion, which is different from what I typically do. Not knowing what to expect, I found it to be I felt very vulnerable. I mean, we even had, and I believe it's shown in that episode, I was really careful when we were editing that episode, because obviously the demonologist doesn't want you to show everything that they're going to be doing. But we wanted to be able to show enough so that people get a clear story and a clear picture of what's going on. But we even had, when he was lighting the candles, burning the incense, we even had a spark come out and catch the floor on fire, which was unlike, and we didn't even, as we were standing there, it's kind of like, what's that smell? And next thing you know, we're looking and the floor is smoking. And so to me, we had several things happen during that time that was definitely supernatural. And I mean, it was really upset and aggressive. So yeah, I definitely had this, I hope I walk out the same way I walked in.
Yeah. And did it make you change the way you think about doing your investigation? Now, being involved in something like that, it must change your thoughts about, what you believe in, because people believe in so many different things, demonic energies, spirits, do you believe in all types of these sort of spirits, or did that one location, change the way you thought to the types of spirits that you encounter?
It really did, because, I'm a Christian, have been all my life. And so I believe in demons, and I believe in angels, and I believe in energy and that sort of thing. And so all of this has really sort of heightened that belief for me. I know, it's kind of one of those things. Every time I go into a location, I know that I could encounter just about anything. You may encounter that benign spirit that is rumored to be there. You may also encounter something more sinister. I do believe that the more sinister is rare. But I do, this really changed my perspective, because typically when I go in, I'm highlighting the travel and the history, and I do usually try to throw in a couple darker episodes, because I'm fascinated by it. But when I'm actually seeking it out, I don't necessarily go and seek out the dark or the demonic. And so encountering this, let's put it this way, I'm really glad that that case is over, because it really started to take an effect on me. And I felt as though whenever I was at that location, that it was, as an investigator, you want a place that you know is going to be active. And anytime you went to this place, I mean, activity was guaranteed pretty much. But it was exhausting. I wouldn't say the spirit followed me home, but the mental aspect of it really followed me home. I got to where, when I would be reviewing evidence, things technologically would kind of go wrong and happen. And it just weighed really heavy on me. And I sort of developed almost an obsession with going to that house and trying to find answers and trying to try all the different experiments that I could. So it really opened my eyes and showed me that you have to be careful. You have to set boundaries, because you just don't know in some of the locations what you're getting into, especially residentials. And especially, you essentially become that homeowner's lifeline, if you will, if anything happens. And that's why I took extra precautions. The homeowner even wanted to start coming into the location and ask specific questions herself. And it didn't feel it was safe. So honestly, everything worked out the way it was supposed to, with her wanting to rent it out. Because I was to the point to where, like I said, it had gotten a hold on me mentally, to where essentially, it was good it ended. When things are making threats at you and everything, it could get dangerous for somebody at that point. So it was good that it wound down when it did.
Brilliant. And since doing the cleansing, the homeowners or who rent the property, have you been in touch with them since to see if they still have things going on? Or
I have, yes. I mean, with a case that intense, anytime I do anything that's residential, I always keep in contact with the homeowners. And honestly, I'm amazed, because I did not know what to expect. And, I wish that video would show what we experienced when that last spirit showed that sign of departure, and when Leon closed off that portal. Because I mean, the house is very dark, and it's not in a great neighborhood, and you can really feel as you drove up to this house. And what was pretty amazing about it is they continued with the renovations. It was about 2 months later, the homeowners moved officially in, and the house, it looks completely different inside. It feels different. And the homeowner, or not the homeowners, but the renters, they're fully aware of everything that took place in there. And they don't really talk about it. They know that they don't need to do anything to try to invite something back in, because it could very easily come back. But to this date, they have no issues. And honestly, if I hadn't been in there myself, I wouldn't believe it, because like I said, that house is unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Definitely stepping into something different to when you're outside to going in.
Yes.
And like I said, it was an absolutely brilliant episode. That was one that got me.
Thank you.
A few questions with regards to yourself, really. From a few people. What is your dream ghost location to go to, like an investigation? Is there any in particular that you want to go to that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So many. If I could just, take a year and travel, that would be amazing. There's several here in the US that I'm very interested in, because I am on the motorcycle. I do like locations where I can get on the road and hit several locations, I would actually like to travel the famed Route 66 and investigate some of those locations along that road. Also, the Mississippi Blues Trail, which runs from Tennessee down to New Orleans. I would also, obviously, Dracula's Castle, and
everyone says that one.
Everyone says that. Yeah.
Everyone. We've even heard of it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's just so many, but I like the ones where, like I said, the more lesser known are the ones that I like to do, and ones that, I can really share that history as well. So yeah, definitely Route 66 and the Blues Trail.
Brilliant. Abby's asked a question. What has been your best location to investigate, and what would you say? Well, I don't know if you would say Sunset Hill, but what was your worst location to investigate? What was your favorite one so far out of all the ones that you've done?
That's also great questions today. And that's a tough one because I have so many for different reasons. One of my newest favorite ones is the Grand Old Lady Hotel that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that one just because it was so different. Hotel built in 1905, and they've really done a lot to keep that hotel sort of in its natural state. It closes up during the winter time just because it gets so cold there in the mountains of North Carolina. And then it's open during the summer. If you've seen Stephen King's The Shining, it puts you in mind of that, of being in this hotel all by yourself, so there's a lot of mental and physical hauntings that is involved with that one. I really like that location. And then I really like the investigation that I did at Brushy Mountain State Prison. That's one of my favorites as well, because it's one I've investigated it on 6 different occasions, and I often will sleep in some of these different locations, especially if I'm there for long hours. And I probably got some of the best Class A EVPs and interaction while sleeping in their solitary confinement unit there at Brushy Mountain State Prison. Probably my worst, oh gosh. And I guess that depends on as far as what you categorize. Probably the one that I'm the most glad to see over, it probably would be the Sunset Hill House, just because there was so much and it took such a toll. So yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one.
Brilliant. And with the pandemic, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm sure you're planning, your next stage, what you're going to be doing next. What is planned for the Ghost Biker? What have you got planned going forward?
Well, right now we're filming for season 4, which will release in October 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And each of those will release each episode will release every Tuesday night during the month of October. So I've got some great locations that a couple of them I've already filmed, a couple of them that we're leading up to film for season 4. Have a lot of traveling actually planned during 2021, some different meet and greet events. Coming over to the UK in September, which I'm just beyond excited about, and going to be traveling to New Mexico as soon as I come back. I do a lot of events because I'm a biker. I do a lot of different events at Harley Davidsons around the country. And so it gives me a unique opportunity to take what we do here with the paranormal and introduce it to a wider, more mainstream audience that may not be interested in the paranormal, and talk to them about what we do, and then also about the travel aspect and the historical aspect with the paranormal. So I've actually got quite a few of the Harley Davidson events planned this year too.
Brilliant. We have got one question that relates to your comment about coming to the UK. Ben's asked, is there anywhere in particular that you've been looking at that you would like to investigate? Are there any areas or locations that you've looked at all?
Oh, there's again so many. We're still working on the itinerary, so I'm not exactly sure how many days I'm going to get to be over. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for 10 days. So for me, honestly, anywhere that I can go all over, you guys just have so much interesting history and so much
Mm.
old history that I would honestly be satisfied with, anywhere that I can get into investigate while I'm over there. I'm working on my list, and hopefully, when I know my itinerary, I'll be able to kind of nail those down. But I am open for anything and everything.
Well, we've had the conversation before our live about potentially if we can make the dates work. Miranda is
Mhm.
happy to join Portal to the Paranormal on an investigation if we can make the dates work. So, I'll definitely say keep an eye out on our website, because if we could definitely get you on a tour with us, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
Yes.
brilliant. But yeah, it's what you do is absolutely fantastic, and
Thank
I know
you.
you love it. I can tell that you love it. But would there be anything that could happen in an investigation that would make you think, "That's it, I'm drawing the line now. I'm not doing this no more"? Everyone has that thought, because
Mm.
I've said it as well. When I've gone on to locations, certain things have happened, and it's made me question. This is it for me. I think I've seen what I want to see. Let's leave that alone now and then move on. Is there anything that would stop you from doing what you're doing, or is it something that you see doing as long as you can?
I hope to be doing, as long as I can. I don't really get too creeped out when I'm doing these. That experience at the Sunset Hill House is probably the one that really got me. And of course, I'll say to myself, it's like, oh, well, I'm glad it's over. I mean, I'm glad it's over for different reasons, I
Yeah.
guess, because of the toll. But I really don't think there would be anything because it's what I'm out there seeking. We all have our definition of the Holy Grail and what would be that, thing that if we captured, I don't think there would be anything that would make me stop because it's what I'm seeking, I guess. And now talk to me again after something kind of crazy intense happens. I may change my mind, but no, I'm kind of, I really try to approach everything with respect, and I know when to say when. Again, I don't really like getting involved with demonic cases or anything of that nature. So, and I know that sometimes those can really wreak havoc if you really get a true, negative entity. Those can really cause problems. If I had to give an answer, that would probably be it. I mean, my calling is not to be a demonologist. God bless them,
Mm.
and the work they do. That would probably have to be if all I could investigate were those type cases. I probably wouldn't do it just because I don't really like to get involved with that.
And seeing, like, I refer back to Sunset Hill House, we see that you were put in a vulnerable state, that
Mhm.
it was quite clear you didn't expect to have what happened. But when your family and friends watch you, and, you must have difference of opinions, you must have people telling you that you're crazy, going to these locations on your own, putting yourself in that vulnerable state. What are they like? What do they feel about you doing this sort of thing?
My mama would definitely tell you that there's certain things I don't talk about
Yeah.
with her, but when she sees, because I've had some things happen. The Revenant Acres house is one of them in particular that was a very dark entity, and I've on two separate occasions, which I don't show in my episodes, but I will speak about at different events. I have actually physically been attacked. So, it's a different story. I mean, she doesn't really it's probably more the thought of the living and going to some of these really bad, dilapidated locations
Mm.
that she's uncomfortable with. And then also really the unknown. So I do have friends that are definitely like, that's a little insane, but for me, putting myself in that vulnerable state. I mean, that's why I really honestly like to push the envelope and try different experiments. I mean, honestly, it's one of the reasons that I enjoy sleeping at these locations because you're specifically putting yourself in that vulnerable state and comparing what do I get when I'm actually interacting and what do I get when I'm in this vulnerable state here before, and see what type of activity. So a lot of it is just experimental for me. And I've even been my own trigger item before, dressing up as a monk and sitting in the monk's tub and seeing what type of reaction. So I'll push the envelope to an extent, not to the point of, provocation or anything like that. But, I have done some things that some of my friends have said is a little bit insane.
Left them a bit sweaty under the collar thinking about what you do. And the last question really for me would be, there's a lot of people that want to get into the paranormal industry, but there's so many different ways of doing it. There's the right ways, the wrong ways. Everyone has difference of opinions. If you was to give someone advice about getting into this industry, what advice would you give out to people and how to go about it?
Yeah. So, again, for me, first and foremost is, set your intentions and respect. I see a lot, I'm not quite sure how it is over there, but, there's a lot of people who have been investigating for a long time that will kind of spew negativity when it comes to people getting started. And I am, my parents were teachers. And so teaching and learning is something that is very important to me. And so I would often tell people, if you really want to get involved, first of all, know that it is real and there are things that you may see and experience that is kind of hard to unsee and not experience once you've seen it. So know that going in, but I would honestly suggest doing your research and your history. And then also just getting, don't go out and invest in all the expensive technology, because some of the best ghost hunting can be done just with simple recorders and, using your phone to document the video, and just, sit and ask questions. And, and then also if, reach out to an investigator that, or that you follow, because most of them, if you reach out on a one-on-one basis, will give you information, ask questions of them, and really just keep an open mind. But again, respect. If you do investigate a cemetery or a graveyard, go in with respect. Don't go in and damage. That's these folks' final resting place. We kind of really have that problem over here, especially in Tennessee, where the cemeteries don't really close. So yeah, I would definitely say, if you want to try it. And, before you go and invest in everything, just a simple record, even record on your phone, and just go in and ask questions. I wouldn't suggest a Ouija board, or I wouldn't even, especially, dowsing rods or pendulums or any type of divination tool. I would not suggest starting out with anything like that.
So just go in with your basics and, start a foundation and move up as you get more trained into it. And did you do any formal training, or is this something that you've just learned as you've gone along, since starting this?
It's honestly something that I've just learned. The team that I was with, they were a great group of individuals, and very respectful and very history driven. And so I learned a lot of techniques from them. I actually haven't watched a whole lot of paranormal entertainment TV. I think back when Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters started way back in the day, I had watched a couple episodes of that, but really I've just tried to kind of develop my own style. And if I find someone that I love watching live videos, I love watching other investigators, because I feel we can all learn something from them.
Definitely.
And that's really where I've picked up a lot, is really just kind of watching other people and talking to other people.
Brilliant. I know I said we were nearly finished, but I've got a few more questions that are popping through.
Sure, go for it.
So I've got one from Nick. He's asked, have you ever investigated at Bobby Macker's music place at all? Have you heard of that?
I have, but I've not investigated there yet. And it's crazy because it's only about a 2.5 hour drive from where I'm from. And I've actually got an invitation to go there next month for a friend's birthday, which I may take her up on that. That's what I've always wanted to investigate, and I've had a lot of investigator friends that kind of has mixed reviews about it. One of the facts is actually a little closer to the road than what a lot of people realize. And I've talked to several people that have got some great stuff there, and I've talked to some others. I don't believe it's the portal to hell, but I do believe that it's supposedly a pretty active place.
Brilliant. And one final question that has popped through, and Ed and Lorraine Warren, are you fans of their work and what what they did? Have you? Because I know the demonologist was trained by someone that was also trained by them, weren't they? They were.
Yes. Oh, yes, go ahead. Yes, he was actually trained by Dave Considine, who was a protege of Ed Warren. Like I said, I have mixed feelings. I think that after experiencing Leon's work and actually being there, seeing him do that, and really for me, seeing is believing, because I am a skeptical believer, and going in and actually seeing this house beforehand and then after. I mean, it honestly, truly amazed me. I mean, Leon did an amazing job. So I think that is a real testament to Dave Considine, as well as, Dave's training through Mr. Warren. As far as I know, that people have mixed opinions about them here in the U.S. I do think he was a good salesman, but like I said, seeing Leon's work it really shaped my opinion, I guess.
Reopened your eyes to everything.
It did.
To a different part of it all. But absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Miranda, for an excellent interview. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Guys, like I said earlier on, if you want to see Amanda's episodes, head over to our YouTube channel, Ghost Biker Explorations. All of them are on there. Hit up her Facebook page as well for her updates. And like we said, we thank you all for taking part in the interview. And then hopefully in September, if we can get Miranda to join us, look out for that, because that would be an amazing investigation. But again, thank you so much, Miranda, for joining us this evening. It's been absolutely great having you on. And I hope we get to see a lot more of you in the future and meet you in person and hopefully do an investigation with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. And I just want to thank everyone. I've been watching the comments over here, and after we get off the live, I'm going to go back and answer some of those.
Some lovely comments that
yes.
You're an inspiration,
oh.
And it is a big thing to do. It is bravery, but to continue, especially I keep going back to Sunset Hill. That's my favorite one, to carry on doing it. Some people would call it a day after, something like that. But no, you're absolutely amazing at what you do, and we can't wait to see what happens for you in the future. And like I said, we do hope we get a chance to meet up with you and do an investigation with you and learn from you as well. So again, thank you so much for a fantastic evening. And thank you for everyone for watching, and keep in touch with us. If there's any locations you want us to look into, let us know, and the same with the viewers as well.
Yes,
keep in touch with our pages, see the events, see what's going on with both of us, and hopefully you'll see a lot more coming out of the pandemic. We'll have a lot more to do and a lot more to share. But for now, thank you again, Miranda. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to catch up with you soon. And thank you for everyone who's watched this evening. Take care, and God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Very